All right, so we're about to start abstract classes. Do you guys know this reference? No one knows this reference, actually. Some of you might. Tribe Called Quest? Well, abstract classes will be your hint there. So we're gonna start abstract class. We can keep it up just a little bit. There we go. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're going to create our first abstract class. Okay. So we decided Paddle was going to be the parent class here, and how are we gonna do that? Well, we are going to create a paddle class, and we're going to define a bunch of methods in it, but some of the methods aren't going to be defined. And those methods will be abstract. Actually, only one method won't be defined. All the rest of them will be defined. So how do we create an abstract class? It's pretty straightforward. We use the abstract keyword. So it's another modifier, just like const, just like static, right? It's another modifier. It's not a modifier we use on variables. It's a modifier we use on classes and methods of those classes. All right, so let's try this real quickly. Public abstract class, and we're going to call it paddle. And we have created our abstract class. Remember, an abstract class is not going to have an object created out of it. All right. The only thing you can do with an abstract class is you can inherit from it. All right. Now we'll have two different classes that will inherit from it: the user paddle and the computer paddle. Right. And each one of those will define its own update position. Okay, so let's get into this. We already kind of decided what our private variables are, right? I kind of decided for you, but you probably already had an idea of it. I think we did a tester knowledge on it, so that's good enough. So if you're playing along with home, and you should be playing along with home because you're gonna have to add to this code, so you might as well play along with home. We could have private x int x corner. So what do we call it? We could call it left corner x. And the reason I'm calling it that is just to make it clear that, oh, this is defining the left corner. Left corner y, okay? And that is the position of this thing, is the left corner. And then we also have, well, what else do we need to draw? Private int, and I'm gonna call it paddle width, and private int paddle height. All right, so that's pretty simple. Now we might have other things going on here. Did I already do so? What is it talking about? Oh, there is no error here. Okay, it's just being crazy. Oh, the pong.paddle height is not used. Okay, whatever. Okay, so now we are, I mean, this should compile, right? Yeah, okay, it did compile. That arrow was throwing me off, but it disappeared the second I tried to compile it. Okay, so now we are in business. Like my favorite transition. I don't know what to say next term. Now we are in business, people. And you're gonna hear that 9,000 times more this summer. So we are in business. And we have to define a certain things. We could define other things. We could do, our constants, our static constants, and be like, okay, we don't want the paddle to be off the screen. We don't want the paddle to be a crazy amount. We might want it to be rectangular, right? So we want the width to be smaller than the height, or whatever we want to do. We could put some sort of constraints on all of this. We're not going to do that. We won't worry about that. Instead, what we will do is we will just pretend that whatever comes into this will be copacetic. All right, so whatever paddle is created will be the correct paddle, and we will just create the things we know how to create. So the first thing we do in paddle is that we would create a constructor for it. And the point of the constructor is to initialize our private variables. So that should become real clear what your constructor should look like, what it should take in, so what it should be named, what it should take in, right? And how the body of the constructor will look like. And remember, we're not worrying about terrible values for these things right now. We're just going to assume that whatever comes in is the correct value, all right? So your first task is to do the constructor, all right? The second task is to do the getters and setters for these variables, okay? And that's important because anything that inherits from paddle will have its own left corner x. That means it has a place in memory with left corner x, but it's not going to be able to access it without a getter or setter, okay? And that's just a design choice of Java. So some languages do that design choice differently. If it's private, it can't access it, so it still has to use the getters and setters to change it, okay? And to get it, okay? All right, so do the getters and setters for these variables. All right, so we have to if we want to change it in our child class, we have to do the getters and setters. And then the final thing is we're going to create a abstract method, and we're gonna say, well, this is gonna be a public abstract method named update position. Okay, and the return type is missing, and that's fair. We should have a return type. I'm just going to make it void because it's just going to update the position. It doesn't need to return anything. It's just going to update the position internally in terms of left corner X and left corner Y, right? And notice, now the most important thing to notice here is I did not give it a body. All right, you're going to give the constructor a body, right? Paddle, whatever, and the body will have this, and you will do all sorts of code in there, right? You're going to do the getters and setters. You're going to give them a body, right? You're going to say something like get, what would it be? And public int get left corner X, right? And the body of this thing will just return left corner X. Right? So that's the body of left corner X. So left corner X is a function with a body, right? Or a method with a body. Update position has no body. There's no curly brace with code inside. Okay. So when will it get its body? Well, it'll get its body when a child class inherits from paddle, and when a child class inherits from paddle, it'll be required to give a body to all the abstract classes, all right? Unless it's an abstract class itself. So you could just keep on inheriting abstract classes to abstract classes to abstract classes. It can get real silly. But for right now, we can say that we have an abstract class with an abstract method inside of it. And if a class wants to inherit from this abstract class, it needs to give a body to its one abstract method, okay? Or to it could have a set of abstract methods. In this case, it's one abstract method. So it needs to give a body to this abstract method. Hopefully that makes sense. Notice that we're using a lot of new terminology, but nothing we're saying is that complicated, right? It all seems pretty straightforward. Okay, so that should make a lot of sense. Maybe we should give me some music to play me out to, right? There we go. All right, let's kick it on the next video. He said trying to find the stop button.